Welcome back, everybody, to Three Old Friends. The Music Never Ends. Our regular podcast with myself, David, my friends Mike and Jose. We're here to regale you again with lots of songs and talking about the songs and what they mean to us. We did Mother's Day one a couple of playlists ago, squeezed in some bass players in between, and now it's time for us to do playlist number 71, which is a tribute to fathers and dads. And so we looked for songs that had special meaning for fathers, fathers and sons, fathers and daughters, and those types of things. And so we hope you enjoy the playlist um, even more than maybe the podcast of us talking about the songs. But check it out, and we look forward to continuing this. To start off the bat, we'll get some general comments about what you thought about the playlist. Um,
No.
start with you, Mike, if you have any general comments.
I mean, really, I'm sure we'll go into this more as we go, but the this one, we've said this a lot. It's like songs when we were young, and then we hear now how different the perspective is. Well, that on top of, we're all dads, and so we've seen both sides of the equation of fathers and kids, fathers and sons, and so a lot of this really, hit home with me. More than the mother's one, frankly, because I'm a dad. So
Yeah, most definitely. I echo that sentiment. It's like the Mother's Day one. We wouldn't be picking these songs 40 years ago, having what we've been through as fathers, and so it's a lot different. And it's interesting listening to them. We've all had our different relationships with our fathers, and we'll get into it obviously throughout the playlist. How some of these songs reflect that. So, and I enjoyed that. It's always good. It's a little cathartic to listen to them and try to understand things and from different perspectives, especially since we're all fathers. We all had fathers. And so yeah, I enjoyed it. And songs that are so hard to pick. I think it was like the Mother's Day one where I went scouring and you found interesting songs. Guess a lot of country people love their parents. Throw that out there.
oh, they're mamas.
I think we could have done just a country playlist, quite
Oh,
honestly,
right.
because of the
We
amount
got close.
Just a joke.
um, same kind of comments that both of you all made. At first I thought, hey, there's a couple of songs that I know that either I've used already or whatever. They're just like, these are the songs that hit my heart when it comes to fathers. And so I talked to Jose and Mike. They said, look, man, if you really need to use them, use them. But what I found out was just like we've done before, we end up exploring other music and other artists and other things, and we find other songs. And so when I was only limited to five, I'm like, well, yeah, I like, for example, Leader of the Band by Dan Fogelberg, but I didn't use it. Or Father and Son by Cat Stevens. I didn't use it because there was so much other material out there that I said, nah, I'll save it for another time and see how the playlist goes. So I started it out with my first selection. And again, it a little bit surprised me because I picked an artist that I knew about and I've listened to some of their songs. It's Keith Urban, but I didn't know he had put out not only this song, but I think he has a whole album about those relationships with his father. And there's one song called Song for Dad. And so it kind of had an upbeat, a little bit more of an upbeat thing. I always like to sometimes start the playlist that way. And again, what I liked about the song is he kept talking about how he sees himself. He's turning into his father. The same mannerisms, the same things where you can see it in his eyes, and people can see it too when they come up to him or say, "Hey, I would have really liked to meet your father." And basically, the line was something like, "We already have. You're meeting me, right? And I'm turning into my father." And I think that's true for all of us. I got to a point where I don't know when it was, probably 15, 20 years ago, where I kind of looked at myself in the mirror and went, man, I'm glad that I was raised by a great father, but then I start seeing that I am like my father in a lot of ways, and that's a reflection on them and on him, and everything else. So again, I like this song because it does that. It says, "Hey, you can see me and my father in my own eyes." So
Yeah, on Keith Urban first, I don't really know much of his music. I made a compilation one time of like 20 or 30 versions of Wichita Lineman, and he had one on there, and I liked it, but I didn't know much else about his music and he was married to Nicole Kidman for a while. But this I really like this song. I was surprised. I heard, no offense, but when I heard Keith Urban, for some reason, I'm like, oh, what is this? And it's really good arrangement. It's like many of these songs, all of these songs, just a great sentiment, really sweet. And the main thing I took out of it is like, I'm seeing myself as I'm seeing my father in me, which also runs through a lot of these songs. And just really the only thing I could add, the other day, my brother and sister-in-law were in town for my anyway, and they for the son's graduation, and at one point, my brother's like, "Hey, I was just looking at you. You look just like Dad," you know, and I really considered that a compliment. I'm no uh, beauty here, but it's deeper than that. Um, we'll go again into more of this, but I agree, and it's also on the inside. He's talking about the things he learned from his dad. He's seeing those come out too. So I think that's a great compliment to any dad.
Yeah. I'm not going to be the. I have to be the downer. It sounds bad. I just don't have that relationship, with my dad. It was completely different. They were divorced early. We didn't see him for a long time. The influence of my dad was sure he has been, and it's there, obviously. But yeah, it's not as much as, it's not happy go lucky. Let's just put it that way. So I'll just throw that out there saying, yeah, believe me, the song is great. I get the sentiment. And we all have a part of our dad, whether we want to admit to it or not. So, and he's done what he's done. He's been highly successful, and he's my dad. So, but yeah, it's a little different. Let's just put it that way. So, from there, I went with, I uh, scoured the internet, looked up the top songs about dads and stuff, and I found John Hyde. I think someone used him before. Has someone used him before? He's never been used.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. I was surprised when you put this out. I was surprised that we hadn't put any John Hyatt on. If we hadn't, because I like his music.
Right. So, and it was good, and it was upbeat like the previous song, and again with the same having the same sentiment, kind of sounding like otherwise not like a dick but sound like I didn't have the same relationship. This song is kind of Your Dad Did by John Hyde. And I like the sentiment of the song as well. That as much as I appreciate what my dad did and how hard he worked, and I think part of our work ethic throughout all my brothers is a strong work ethic. We've always had this. And my dad, who was a doctor, and actually he went back to school from pediatrics to preventive medicine. So you got to respect that. But this song kind of reflects that he's got to do it, you've got to do it to support what you want to do, and even though and it's also kind of giving you some advice of like, you got to do this. So anyway, that's why I put it on.
well, again, it was a surprise to me. We hadn't played any John Hyatt, and not really that familiar with it, but it went real good, I think, after the first song. And it was kind of more of a, hey, this is a reality of life kind of thing with his father, and then now he's a father, and so he kind of has that in weaving into the song. And then I know to bring it up, but the ending was just hilarious, where little 2-year-olds praying at the dinner table, and what's the actual line? I think they said something like, "Help the starving children to get well, but let my brother's hamster burn in hell." Yeah, it's just that's brilliant. That's families. That's what families go through all the time, and the father probably just takes it in stride. That's life. That's life at the dinner table. That's my family. We all have those chagrin moments and stuff with our kids and everything. So I thought that was a clever song. I really like the lyrics of it.
Yeah, I really like the humor to it as well, and it does. I can totally relate looking back. A lot of these things, like my daughter and son got along really well, but sometimes one or the other. I won't point out which one he was, but could get on the other's nerves a little bit, and so there was some friction. And the other things that kids do, it's like at the time it seemed like as a dad, I'm just like, oh God, kids, I've got a job, I got all this going on. He's singing the song. It's like, you kind of take the high road as best you can with this stuff going on. And looking back though, it's like, yeah, it's some funny stuff. At the time it wasn't, but it was, it was the memories, stuff that's, not just the boring, everybody wasn't just a little angel going to church and whatever else little angels do. Anyway, um, and then the danger on these songs is that, some of the stuff might get repetitive because it covers a lot of the same ground. I went with one next I had not heard of, Fathers and Sons by um, Waylon Jennings. And it talks about, kind of got the lyrics here. It's basically, you've only got so much control. It really, you mentioned that Cat Stevens song. There's another one by The Faces, I think called Ooh La La, that it's actually a grandpa talking to his grandson, but it's kind of the same sentiment. It's like you've got two different perspectives, and the kid's going to learn, he's going to have to learn on his or her own, and that's he's looking from the experience of, yeah, he had a pretty wild life, Waylon. And that was it. The higher you go, the more you can slip, things like that. But can you really tell that to your kid? Your kid's like, okay, yeah, you're older, sure, whatever, but you don't know me, And so that's kind of this I'm experiencing right now with my son. It's just a different point of view from where we are in life, and we all, of course, did that as we referenced earlier. Songs are different to us now than they were, and I sure had to learn some lessons the hard way that parents, sometimes my dad, would try to help me avoid that.
Right. Well, we live in a different world, a different style of parenting, definitely from when our parents to us. It's just different. And and son, obviously I have my son. And like you said, there's that relationship that you have that, and it's funny how the cycle goes. You go with your father, and then all of a sudden now you're putting the reverse role as that person. So, but there's always that, and we'll get to the other songs about the daughters, which y'all can talk to more about. But fathers and sons, there's always going to be that certain thing, and a certain understanding comes once you grow older and become a father. Okay, I understand why this happened or why this didn't happen, but it's usually unspoken for the most part. But you learned it, and you're like, oh, I remember this or I remember that. And same with my son. And we'll talk about really all the relationships. But yeah, I thought it was a good little song. Again, country. We're going country.
Yeah, if you're gonna go country, you surprised me, Mike, with the Waylon Jennings. I wasn't familiar with it either, but I'm like, when he put on Waylon Jennings, I'm like, all right, we're doing the country thing. That's the way to go. Um, and Waylon Jennings is classic country, and this song, I'll just say there's nothing spectacular about it melodically or how it's structured. It's just a really nice basic country song, and that's sometimes better than the other, right? It's just simple, to the point. That's how it's always been with fathers and sons, and you got that Waylon Jennings vocal in there. Uh, you can't go wrong. So when it came on the playlist, my ears perked up, and I've been wanting to put other Waylon Jennings maybe songs on there, like mamas don't let your babies grow up to be cowboys and stuff like that. But anyway, it was a great song, great choice. From there, I kind of again surprised myself a little bit. I was looking for daddy songs and father songs and things like that, and then just kind of Google searching, looking for them, and came across "Daddy's Tune" by Jackson Browne, and I'm like, okay, I absolutely must know this song because I had the album The Pretender, right? And I probably listened to it, but was it my favorite track? I don't know. I can't remember. But I listened to it again after 30, 20, 30, 40 years, whatever it's been. And I'm like, man, this is a really cool song. And so once I previewed it and listened to it once, I kind of felt like I needed to put it on there. We all kind of like Jackson Browne anyway, so I thought, oh, okay, this might be one that Jose or Mike remembers or whatnot. I like the tempo of the song, and I like how it kind of changes in the midway through, and then kind of gets into that instrumental towards the end. And again, I thought it was a pretty cool song, and yeah, that's about all I can say about it.
I did not, believe it or not, I did not own The Pretender. And I certainly heard a lot of the songs on album-oriented rock stations back when it came out. And since then, I have listened to all of it. It's a good song. It's kind of dark. This is a father and son who really have come to an impasse. As they're now older, I take it they're trying to. I don't remember the lyrics exactly. Trying to kind of find some way to bring it together. I do like the line about 78s next to 40, or yeah, put my 45s next to your 78s. I thought that was clever.
Oh yeah, I thought it went well with the Waylon Jennings song. Again, I kind of vague recollection of the songs. I know we had the album. Of course, if you probably didn't make one of our mixtapes, we were probably like, we had so many albums back then. How many times were we listening to The Pretender? How many times were we just listening to the album all the way through at some point? It's interesting. So, but yeah, it's a great song. I like this, and this, like Mike said, topics like this will come up, and this is one of them where you come to a point with your father. Sometimes it's the generational gap. It's the disagreement gap. So yeah, it's a good song to. Like I said, it affected me. So, and there was another song that we'll talk about later that also did. And then going into that, I picked Jason Isbell. I've kind of been on this kick ever since Mike put that one song on. I don't know why. Dress Blues. I went with Outfit by Jason Isbell live. I just thought I like him. I like the song. It's a song again, another one of the songs that is a topic that happens in some of the other songs on the playlist is about leaving and getting the advice. At some point, you've got to leave. And what do you say? And then sometimes your kids got to leave. So at some point, you have to give advice or you get advice, and you never know what's it going to be. And let's face it, there ain't no manual. There ain't nothing that tells you how to be independent. You just learn a lot of stuff on your own. You do get help, you get guidance, but yeah, I thought I just like the passion of the song, so I put that on there, and I really want to see him in concert at some point.
Yeah, I thought it was a great song. We both said, or we've all said, hey, we like this Jason Isbell guy. So exploring some of his other music. I think, was this a cover he did of somebody else's song though?
I think so.
Right, but this was live. It's great how it's a classic country song because it's like, hey, let me tell you all the advice. Here's how, what you need to know, and he even talks about how he was made in the back seat of a Mustang or whatever, and then he said, you probably figured all this out, but in case you don't or you forgot, I'll lay it out real nice. Don't call what you're wearing an outfit. Don't ever say your car is broke. Don't worry about losing your accent because Southern mans tell better jokes. Have fun, stay clear of the needle. I mean, he's telling them, stay away from drugs. call home on your sister's birthday. Don't tell them you're bigger than Jesus. I mean, he's giving great sound fatherly advice, but not only that, but just words of wisdom that everyone probably needs to listen to be humble and to do those things. And really, I think the message is don't forget who you are. You've been raised this way, you're certain, and whether that's the country's kind of thing or not, hey, we've taught you this way. Don't go the other way. And so I thought it was a great song, and I'm glad you put it on.
Yeah, yeah. Be true to yourself, I think it boils down to, which is something we good for any person in their formative years to hear because it's so easy to not. I like that, and he has a history of he's in recovery. I don't know if it was alcohol or drugs or both. So that line I did not realize it was a cover. I figured that was from experience. He brought that up. I also like the I am assuming it's a nod to John Lennon, bigger than Jesus. I mean, who else has said that? And it's just I don't know. He kind of tried to do a revisionist history of what he meant by that or whatever you want to think about that. But yeah, it's good, and I'm glad you did kind of pick that up because I I had wanted to check out his music before we'd ever been doing this, and Dress Blues it just happened to fit. I did a search I think for songs about war or the cost of war, which that's that Dress Blues. And then Father John Misty references him in the song. Um, I'm blanking out, but oh, it's just Jason Isbell's worried about you. If that as he had probably hit pretty low bottom at one point. If he's worried about you, you got troubles. But anyway, that's all aside. And all that to say is I want to check out more of his stuff too. I also influenced myself, and I need to get some more of his music. And so, speaking of John Lennon, that's uh, no, you know what? I don't think I'd actually heard the song before I chose my next one. Some of these I kind of had already picked out, and I wanted to get this beautiful boy parentheses, Darling Boy, off of Lennon's last album with Yoko Ono, and Double Fantasy. And so I think it was just one of those coincidences that we have that there was that reference. And then this is about, this is the last album he did that was released before he was killed, Lennon. And it's about his son, Sean, who was 5 at the time his father died. And it's just a really poignant song. It's a great message. It's, given what happened soon after the song was recorded and released, it's all the more poignant. And I had this record. I bought it before he was killed. And there are a couple songs in there I really liked. Several, no offense, particularly Yoko's, I didn't necessarily focus on a lot. But this is one that's like, okay, yeah, well, that's nice. But now, again, from this perspective, having had that 5-year-old, both boy and girl in my house at one point, I can really, I can see that. I know those feelings. I still feel those. I was having this conversation with my son the other day about, we weren't exactly agreeing on some things. And I'm like, I know you're thinking I'm kind of being really bossy, but there's part of me that worries about it, that little 5-year-old, he's still in here. You're still him. You may be this guy too. So it's hard to let that, that's never going to go away. Um, and just the last thing, Sean Lennon is now older than his dad ever made it. I got to see him a couple of years ago. He played a show with Les Claypool, and it's really good. They did the whole album, Animals by Pink Floyd. I must have mentioned that 3 times now. But anyway, yeah. So that's where I was going with this.
Yeah, he put out an album, and I think we're gonna be in Austin in June, July, one of those soon.
Yeah, so
And yeah, I wouldn't mind singing. Yeah, it was a great song. Obviously, because I only have one son, the most important day of my life was when my son was born. So, of course, an extra special meaning because, of course, I have one. He's my boy. And like Mike said, you always see him kind of young, even though he's almost 30 at this point. And of course, he's so much older, but you always see him as a young. You always got the good memories of when they were young. And what I also like about this song is was it that calypso feel to it? Was I listening well? And it sounded great. It just fit right in with what this kind of lighthearted, this kind of different kind of take for John Lennon. And I think obviously this song really made him change. Obviously, he had a son before, but this one was kind of one where he kind of started turning his life around and seeing what was important, I suppose, in his son. So anyway, I thought it was a fantastic song.
can I just add something real quick? You
Yeah.
mentioned that Calypso. So I read a little bit about this album. Well, I'm sure we all have, but he had basically retired from music or just stopped to raise his son. Then 5 years later, he with a group of other people took a sailboat from somewhere in New England down to Bermuda, Barbados, something like that. And along the way, they hit a massive storm. And like one by one, everybody else on the boat kind of fell out, seasick or whatever. Not fell out of the boat literally, but they were no longer functional. And so he like for like 4 or 5 hours, he like piloted this boat through this storm. And that experience kind of got his brain going again on music, and near death experiences had him, sadly, not knowing what was to come, but seeing the fragility of life. Anyway, I think that's why that steel drum and stuff in there is because that had been a big part of this whole thing when it went down. I think they may have recorded some of it there. I know he wrote some of it down there, and he called Yoko like the next day and was like, "Hey, I got some song." Sorry, Dave.
No, you're fine. I think it has a little bit of that Yoko feel to it because it has that little bit of that almost Asian kind of sound to it a little bit. And that's what I think of when I hear it a little bit. And um, I think over the years, I've had four sons born, and I think I've played this song several times after each one is born. It just was one of those ones where I think I'm gonna put that song on. I want to listen to that song because it reminds me of when they were young and when they were born, and so it's always been a favorite of mine. In fact, it was probably not too long ago where, and this is where I always, like I said this before, where one of my daughters goes, "Hey," she's listening to Spotify or some other thing. It's like, "Hey, you got to hear this song." And she puts on Beautiful Boy or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, I like that. I know that song. That's a good song. But it's funny that my young daughters will pick up or hear some song and think it's new or think it's they'd never heard it, and then I have to give them the backstory of John Lennon and Sean and the whole thing with all of that, so they get perspective of it on that song. So anyway, great tune. I'm glad you put it on. Definitely goes on this playlist. Um, from there, I pivoted to a newer song that I had heard a couple of times. I'm gonna admit it. I watch American Idol. It's one of those things I watch. I watched almost every season, except for this last one. For some reason, I stopped watching or whatever. But anyway, a couple of seasons ago, maybe it was last year or the year before, this Samoan guy, Hawaiian Ian Tongi won American Idol, and when he was on the show, he played, even in one of the audition rounds or whatever, he played the song "Monsters" by James Blunt, and then in one of the finales, they had James Blunt join him and sing the song, and I guess it got recorded and was put out there. I think that's the version that is actually recorded on this, whatever. But it's "Monsters" by James Blunt, but Ian Tongi takes it and tries to make it, his own, and just a powerful song. He almost couldn't get through the song during the show because he had lost his father not too long ago and was talking about his father. So it was really emotional for him to even sing the song, which again is what artists need to do, connect in a real way with songs. And the you know the bridge to the chorus or whatever is when he says, "I'm not your son, you're not my father. We're just two grown men saying goodbye. No need to forgive, no need to forget. I know your mistakes and you know mine. While you're sleeping, I'll try to make you proud. So, Daddy, won't you just close your eyes? Don't be afraid. It's my turn to chase the monsters away." And I guess I get from that his father's passing, dying and is passing away, and so he has an opportunity to say goodbye to him, and that just a real tender thing. But anyway, I've heard it a lot, and it's been a song that I've liked recently. So I said that really connects with the father thing. Oh, by the way, if you picked up on it during Beautiful Boy, they mentioned monsters, right? And in the very beginning, and kind of chasing them away. I thought that was pretty cool. That then we put the next song on anyway. Probably only me or others. Maybe you guys picked up on that. If not, I thought that was. I didn't intentionally do that, but when I listened to it, I went, "Oh, there's that monster. Oh, here's the time for that monster song." Anyway.
They're saying outfit, beautiful boy, monsters all intertwined in some weird. Remember that time when Mike had that playlist of links? Right? Is that how this should have really worked?
Hey, it goes farther than that because father and daughter talks about monsters under the bed.
Oh, wow.
And he's like, I can't. Well, we'll get to that in a minute. And there's also, I noticed at least three songs about that reference cars, like, and I thought that was interesting. But I have heard the name James Blunt. Um, I had not known what his music or who. I knew it was popular. I didn't know what genre. This is really showing. It's kind of like the Billie Eilish blind spot. It's like I wasn't paying attention to that stuff, but having heard this now, it's like, oh, I recognize that voice. So I have heard other stuff by him, and yeah, this is a boy. What I talk about poignant song, and in that way, it's a really good one to follow the previous one because this is now, yeah, his dad's dying, and he's trying to soothe his dad like his dad soothed him when he was a kid and afraid. And I don't want to get too in the weeds on this, but when my dad died, I wasn't able to be there because he had gotten sick and he was unconscious for several weeks. And so I got to go see him in the hospital, um, and was able to visit with him for a little bit and just talk to him. And I kind of was able to kind of say some stuff. And we'll maybe talk about this in a little bit. Well, he and I, and I think it was as much the perspective of a teenager not understanding why his dad's, it's one of the earlier songs. What was it? Maybe Daddy's Tune. I know. Oh no, Song for Dad. It's like not getting why Dad, would harsh on me about this or that. Now I have the perspective looking the other way. And I'm that guy doing that for my son, and I held on to that grudge way too long. I was into my 20s before I kind of, and maybe even after I got married, before I really started, appreciating what I had there. Um, my parents also divorced when I was young, when I was 5. I don't blame either of them for that. Just sometimes it's not to be. But and so I live with my mom. So I had more distance there with him, and I think I was quicker to judge him because he had to do a lot of catch up and a couple of weeks every several months. You know, and also I'm gonna just say everything I'm gonna say these other things, but we all make mistakes. Dads make mistakes. I know I do. I'll remember those things. But you got to give some grace, either way. So anyway, I was all that back to, I'm glad I got the opportunity to, I don't know if he heard me or not. He was in a coma, but I was able to say some things to him about how proud I was of him. Because I could spend hours talking about that, and maybe in a little bit some more, but um, and I meant every bit of it. It's like I don't, that other stuff is like gone to me now. And it came as a surprise when he died. They were moving him from the hospital to a rehab place, and like they walked out of the room, they came back, and he was gone. So anyway, all that was what I was thinking about when I listened to the song every time. So yeah, I appreciate you guys listening to that.
Uh, it's always, it's got to be difficult, and I guess I'm the only one who's still left without it. But first, let me say, Dave, never apologize for guilty pleasures on TV. I'm the king of watching TV. I watch some of TV, and if you didn't watch TV, we'd never get this song, which I consider the best song on this. And who would have thought that? It is so poignant. And going back into the weeds with you, Mike, yeah, with my dad, it's the same. It hits the nail on the head. You're you're my dad, but we're kind of like strangers. We're not. You're my dad, but we don't have that close, tight knit relationship. So it hits hard, and that song did it. So yeah, Mike, and like you said, it's tough to get over. And cheers. And he's gonna, actually, my sister, I don't know if y'all know, but my sister's gonna move here to San Antonio. So, I'll probably see her more around, and he'll obviously be around with, my stepmom and stuff. So anyway, yeah, I just thought that was just a fantastic choice. I don't know where that came from, but it's one of those things where you listen to these and you go through all the emotions of all the other songs, but then this one hits just a little different, and it did for me. So anyway, I won't dwell on that much longer. But from there, I went with you knew Neil Young had to be writing a song about. It was just probably a given. But here for you, I'd never heard this song, but who doesn't love Neil Young? And it's actually about, and the next three songs are about his daughter. His daughter's going off to college, and he's having to deal with that, and we all deal with kids going off, and you're always looking after them, and you're always worried that they pick up and they call you. You're going to be there, and that's how you feel. You don't understand that when you're 18 to 25. You're a little more in that zone of, man, I really don't want to call them, but when you do, you get reassurances for the most part, and that's the same with it. That's and my son knows if he ever needs anything, he can call, and so that's what you do as parents. So I thought it was a great song too.
Yeah, we all love Neil Young, and we know a lot of his music. And this is one where I guess it's off Prairie Wind, and I've known of the album, and I've probably heard several of the tracks on the album, and I saw I think it was like live on something. It was maybe with the Ryman, or it was some kind of a thing, and he was doing the whole Prairie Wind thing, and so I remember watching that and going, man, all of these songs on this album are really, really good. But I didn't really, lock in. I didn't download it or whatever. And so when you put this one on, I'm like, um, uh, when I was previewing some songs about fathers, this one came up too, and so I kind of had it on my short list. And I said, if this comes up, I want to put this on. There's another one on that album too, but this one is more poignant that way. And yeah, it's a great tune, and it's Neil Young at his finest, and the harmonica that he uses, and doing all of that. And yeah, I love the song.
Yeah, me too. I have this record. It came in a interesting kind of paper sleeve. It was like I forget, there were all these environmental things having to do with the packaging. But believe it or not, I first time I saw Neil Young was around the time this came out, maybe a little bit before, but he already had some of the songs, and he did all solo acoustic set surrounded by instruments and go from one to the other. And I don't think he did this song, but that's one of the reasons I got the CD. And these songs are about differences between parents and kids, and or dads and kids, and the butting heads and learning as you get older. But this is just like, this is plain and simple. I'm there for you, and that's my kids got to know that. My son hasn't left the house yet. My daughter's been out for a few years, but when it comes down to it, I could be an old fart, and I'm there with a phone call away. So it's a great sentiment. I didn't know which child this is about. He also has written some songs about his son who has, I don't know if it's MS or whatever, but what is it?
Autism. Is it autism or?
Cerebral palsy, isn't
Yeah,
it?
that's what it is. Yeah. Yeah. And so he's definitely, those kids mean a lot to him. I don't even know. I mean, his son must be as old as I am, or we are. But anyway, great song. So we continued with the daughter thing for a couple more songs. I did Daughter by Loudon Wainwright III. It's off of the soundtrack to the movie Knocked Up. And if I'd never, right, you smile, right?
I love that one.
Strangely, it's a good movie. It is a
Great.
really moving movie, but a name like that, I didn't want to go see it. I think Rachel had suggested, I don't know. I hadn't seen Freaks and Geeks or whatever that show was that Seth Rogen was on. And so I was kind of out of the loop, and I saw this movie and I was like, oh my gosh. And this song, I think maybe plays over the credits. And it's just like this song has stuck with me. It's one of those that I tear up fairly frequently when I listen to. And it came out not too long after my daughter had been born. And so it's like I was right there on that. And the next song we'll get to in a minute, similar situation. But his sense of humor. We've had him on one before about getting old, and he has this kind of dark sense of humor. Most of his stuff is funny, but this is yeah. He has a couple of kids. It's funny, but it's boy, we're using this word a lot. Poignant. It's heartfelt emotion, but he can't help but put in a little bit of his whatever. So, don't know what else to say. Oh, well, I would just say, it's interesting because all the songs about dads and sons on here, most, if not all of them, are about this. For some reason, daughters. And I think I wouldn't say it's a universal thing, but, I guess that's pretty common. Dads and daughters, there's a different kind of relationship. Sons, I guess, because the dads, I don't know, I'm guessing, because dads want them, they see a little bit of themselves in them, and they want them to not make the mistakes they did or whatever, and see how stubborn they can be as they were when they were kids. Daughters, I don't know. I don't know. Just it's something to ponder. I've thought about that a lot as I've listened to these songs.
Well, yeah, I can't speak much on it. I don't have a daughter, but obviously I have friends who have daughters and like that. So there's the difference. You don't explain it. I can't explain it. No, probably someone that explains it out there that it's just a different feeling. So y'all can attest to more to that than I do. I enjoy the songs. The only way I can really relate to them is I think about it just as my son instead of a daughter, but it's a different feeling. It's a whole different sentiment out there. It's a different vibe with a daughter that, I've never experienced. So I can't really talk about it.
Well, trust me, daughters are different than sons. I will say that. I've had four sons and five daughters, and uh, daughters were harder. They just were. The boys, I mean, yeah, they could beat the crap out of each other, or they could do whatever, but yeah, the girls with the emotions and all the other things, it's much harder. I had to work a lot harder to try to connect with my daughters, and at times I would just like look at them the wrong way, and they would boo, and I'm like, what did I do? I turned to my wife, what did I do? Like, you just need to be calm with them, and I'm like, I didn't say anything, or whatever. But so yeah, they're a little bit of a more of a challenge for sure. Um, I think you've done a couple of Loudon Wainwrights. I know this is stupid, and I don't know why it is, but every time I hear when you go, oh, Loudon Wainwright the third, for some reason I'm thinking jazz trumpet player or something, not this other cool white dude that does these really cool folky other kind of songs. I don't know why that is and that why that happens, but I got to remember that Loudon Wainwright the third is Loudon Wainwright the third, and he's a different cat, and he does his thing the way he does it. I like his music. I like the lyrics. He says, that's my daughter in the water. I lost every time I fought her. And he says every time she blinks, she strikes somebody blind. So it's again, it's a great song. I enjoyed it. I just got to remember that he's not a black trumpet player or whatever. 60.
If I can interject, I've only seen him once in concert, and it was at this little venue, and it was him and Richard Thompson, like co-headline, and so they trade back witty conversation. They're both making fun of Bob Dylan's Christmas album, things like that, and so it's not the same kind of music, but and there's some familial relationship with their kids, anyway. So yeah, I kind of relate to him like that. Also, he did the song "Dead Skunk in the Middle of the Road." You remember that one? You should look it up. When I was a kid, it was on Top 40 radio. Look it up. That was his first. That was probably his moneymaker right there.
Jeez.
Anyway, sorry, Dave. I keep doing this.
No, you're fine. You're fine. From there, we kept with the daughter theme, so I knew I had that Paul Simon father and daughter kind of in my hip pocket. So that's probably the best place to put this one on now. And I knew Mike liked the song. I knew Mike was with really into it. I wasn't sure if Jose had heard it or not or liked it, but great lyric, great song, classic Paul Simon. And I think now that I look at the lyrics, it does say, and though I can't guarantee there's nothing scary hiding under your bed, I'm going to stand guard like a postcard of a golden retriever. So you have that same reference. And yeah, I like it. I like the verses. And then I like when he gets into the chorus, I'm going to watch you shine. It's just a really, really good vibe that he puts out on it. And, talks about how important daughters really are in the relationship. So anyway, thought it went well.
I think of these songs as like it's just coincidental that they're on here like this, but they're a pair to me. I've always kind of felt the same way about them, and it's a great song. I won't go on any further about that. It was just I appreciate the choice because it was on my list. I would have had to put it on there somewhere if you didn't.
Are you suggesting I haven't heard Father and Daughter by Paul? Come on, Dave.
I didn't know. I didn't know if you had. I mean, that was later, Paul.
No, I'm just kidding. I have obviously I've heard it, but now again, you listen to way too much music. It's a great song. It would have been my choice if someone else hadn't chosen it. Even though again I don't have a daughter, so I kind of stayed away from those. Minus the Neil Young song, but again, it's just a fantastic song, and Paul Simon always delivers, and we will never forget him for canceling, right, Dave? Simon and Garfunkel, son bitch. Anyway,
It was a hurricane, I think that.
Right, it was.
You said Simon and Garfunkel. You had a chance.
1983, I think it was.
Yeah, we go all the way to Houston, and right when we're going to get off the exit to the Astros, they're like, "It's canceled." Because of a hurricane. So then we got to go away and turn all the way around and go back home.
That sucks.
We ate at a Bonanza. You remember that?
Mm-hmm, I did.
Sitting all around us and we're all high.
I think it was George Davis, right? Was with
Yeah,
us.
we were all pretty wasted. But yeah, and his brother, Earl, right?
George and Earl, right?
Right. It was fun. The trip was. It's terrible that we never got, and I've never seen him since, so that's the worst part.
I know, right?
I should have at least caught him once or twice, but no. From there, another icon, Bruce Springsteen. Y'all got to see Independence Day. It was one of those songs that Fathers again. It's one of those that was covered before about growing out on your own, You know, your dad's gonna try to help you, not help you, give you the advice. You have to, at some point, declare your independence, so to speak, of this is what I'm gonna do, this is how I'm gonna choose life. Sometimes it works out, you know, you're gonna make mistakes. And of course, Bruce Springsteen, I, I thought it interesting that he used to sing this song live, and so now I want to find some tapes where he sings this live. I find that interesting to hear that live. I'm sure it's out there. So anyway, one of the songs I picked, I thought it went well with the rest of the rest of the playlist.
Yeah, we've been saying this, more Bruce Springsteen, and got to remember that he's out there. He's got great songs. I wasn't familiar with this. I do like. I don't think I had the album The River, but I like the song The River, and I know that album in that period of time I really liked, and so wasn't surprised when I saw that it came off that album as well. And um, I was going to say something. Okay, so I know there's millions of songs and there's millions of chords and they all sound alike and there's someone there sounds very similar, but there's this song and there's another one. It might even be Outfit. In fact, I think it's Outfit and this song. If you go back and listen to them again, listen to them with the ear to Pink Floyd's Lost for Words. And I don't know why that is in there, but it's the same type of a cadence to it. It's the same kind of a chord progression. It's the same kind of. It's very similar. If you ever listen to them, and again, I'm not saying I'm some genius savant ear kind of thing, but when I think it was Outfit, and then it was also this one. They both have that same kind of thing to it. So go back and listen to it, and then think "Lost for Words" by Pink Floyd off. Is it off Division Bell or no? It's
Uh,
off Great Day for Freedom. Which one's that album?
is that a Gilmore song?
That's right. It's not Roger Waters. It's Pink Floyd without Roger Waters. What's the one where he does Great Day for Freedom and
I think that is Division Bell, isn't it?
That is
Or
Division Bell? Okay,
yeah.
it's off that album, whatever. But Lost for Words is the name of the song. But anyway, um, very similar structure to it. But I like the song. Like I said, I liked when the last one with the Mother's Day that I put on the Bruce Springsteen thing. So it's cool that we have one on for Father's Day too.
Right. Interesting.
yeah, I mentioned this before. I didn't like Bruce Springsteen when I was younger. Now I like him enough that I'll have to say Cowboy Pete again. It's
Outlaw Pete,
Outlaw Pete. How
Oh, shit,
quickly
you
they
get the
forget.
name.
my favorite Bruce Springsteen song.
But I went to see him, and I maybe said this, or maybe I just told you guys, it was one of the best concerts I've seen. It was just, the guy has so much energy. But he also knows how to craft a song with emotion. And this one, Hungry Heart, was a big hit off this. Well, there were others that got airplay, but I remember, coincidentally, the John Lennon one and this were not too far apart. I remember like one of the last interviews Lennon gave, he said he was talking about stuff he liked. And I think he mentioned the B-52s, but he mentioned this album and Hungry Heart is like stuff that kind of got him interested in stuff going on again. But this song, yeah, this is like, to me, it's like that Jackson Brown song, like before they kind of maybe he had the time to look back. It's like, this is like, I'm leaving. We're at this impasse and it's just time, I got to go my own way. And that happens, it does happen. If you're lucky, I guess, you get the opportunity for later reflection and see that maybe not everything was exactly like you saw it. Maybe it was, but it is. It's a kind of a sad song. Well, there's a number of sad things through here, but I like it, and I do. I did not have the river. I don't know if I said that, but I was surprised to see it was a double album. I kind of think at that point there were fewer and fewer double albums, but this one was, and there weren't that many songs, but I think he's known for having some long songs. Anyway, um, so I also don't know if maybe I listened to Independence Day, but my next song, 1941 by Harry Nilsson, is is this time the father's leaving. And it's not like a divorce. It's like the dad just walks off, which we know it happens. It happened in that Tupac song in the or Tupac in the Mother's Day, playlist. And it does happen. And um, so I've known this song. I almost put on another one called, I think it's Daddy's Song that he did. That the song ended up being recorded by somebody else and was, I think, the theme song to the courtship for Eddie of Eddie's father or something in the early '70s. I never watched it, but I think Bill Bixby. Anyway, but this song I looked it up. And it's autobiographical. His dad did exactly that. He was born in 41. His dad left just a few years later, 44. And I don't know the rest of it, if that how much true that is about. I know he wasn't the most stable guy. He was kind of one of the people that was with Lennon during the lost years when they were all just acting crazy on alcohol and whatever. And that was kind of his life most of the time. But so I don't know if what happens later in the song is him, but it's just like I like it's like the pattern. It's like the dad does this to the son. Um, the son grows up and he's got this kind of eye for, he wants to hit the road and all the stuff that, can be so romantic in literature and stuff. But it also in country songs, it's like that door still beckons, that highway still beckons. And he leaves his wife and son. And then the last verse, that son it's like, what's it? Uh, who knows what'll happen when the circus comes to town for that son? Because that's what his dad is like. That's what caught his eye is like the circus, and he wanted to travel. So, it's a short but sad song. It was um, the Beatles are still together, and they kind of somewhere in an interview, one of them said that they liked his music because after this record come out, specifically this song, I don't know, one of the guys who I should know his name that was kind of with them, maybe produced some stuff. I don't know. Anyway, he got a bunch of copies of it and sent it to them, and they liked this song in particular. So very early Nilsson. I'm really surprised. I've said this before, but I'm really surprised we haven't had more Nilsson on there. I don't know about you guys, but I like a ton of his music, and we probably used him before, I'm sure, on earlier playlists.
Yeah, we have a couple of them. I think which one was that? Was it the one with the Midnight Cowboy on it? But
Oh,
anyway,
yeah, that's right.
right. Yeah, going from Bruce Springsteen to 1941, it's kind of a joke. I realized that when I was listening to it today, it's like, and then all of a sudden it's like, and you're like, what just happened? What was that game trying to do? Piccadilly Circle? What happened here? So, and it's a fun little, it's obviously a song about cycles and stuff, but it's one of those that kind of, it takes you out of it for a second, and then you have to kind of listen to it. But he's like a number of the British, obviously, kids who, the war, I'm sure there's not a ton, but rock stars who faced a similar situation where, the servicemen they got married and then the dad left. And so, and of course, they never think it's going to happen to them. They're going to be different, but, the cycle continues and it does. So, yeah, I thought it was a great song. Again, like I said, it kind of takes you, it's definitely a different kind of song. It reminds me of, Tommy, 1921, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Right. So anyway, just thought I'd throw that out there. Great song.
What I liked about it is that it was different than a lot of the songs on the playlist, right? It just had a different feel and vibe to it. Almost reminded me of some like the quirky David Bowie stuff that we've heard or some of that, and you're right. We probably should do some more Nilsson. Never really had any of his albums, but there's probably 5 or 6, maybe 10 great songs that that it's Nilsson. What's the one? Living without you, right? Or I can't live if living is without you.
Right.
That
Yeah, without, yeah.
Yeah,
I
that.
got you.
And then I did a Jerry Jeff Walker cover of another guy, and in that montage, he went into Everybody's Talking, which Harry Nilsson made famous. Probably covered somebody else, but that was another cool one. But um, yeah, I think it'd be cool to explore some more of his stuff. So bring it on. I thought it was, again, I liked the fact that it wasn't like every other song on the playlist, and it changed it up a little bit. So um, from there, we're into our last song, and before I get into my last song, I wanted to just quickly just say a little couple words about my dad. I know we've talked, Mike, you talked a little about yours, Jose with yours, but um, my dad was the best. I mean, he was just the greatest dad anyone could ever have. Um, he coached me in baseball. He coached me in basketball growing up. And I was the youngest of the kids so he was 42 when I was born. So if you think about that for a second, and then, by the time I'm 10, 12, he's in his 52, 54. And then even later on, he's still doing it. And, some of the earliest memories I have of him is that he was in the military and then he retired like in 1970. And after that, and I was like 5 years old. Well, after that, he was kind of home all the time. And I know this sounds weird because I know he did stuff with my sisters and my brother and other things like that. But I just remember when I was young, 7, 8, 9 years old, and I would wait for him to come home from work. And he would come home, and I knew he was tired. But he would, and I don't know why would be wearing like a cardigan sweater and whatever. And he would say, just give me a second, son, just give me a second. And he'd like take off his sweater, and then he would just stay in his work clothes. He'd go to the kitchen or whatever, and I don't know, he'd grab a graham cracker or he'd grab an apple or something and grab the mitts, and he would go out and he'd play catch with me. And I don't know why, but those are some of the earliest memories I remember. And he did it all the time, whether it was playing catch with me or shooting baskets or whatever it was. But it seemed like he always had the time to do that, even coming after work and other things like that. And anyway, I just loved my dad, and he was a role model for me. He lived a full life. He died when he was like 93. So, I mean, we had him for a long time and for all the years. But just growing up, I can count on maybe one hand the times that or less that he ever really got mad at me. And when he did, it was generally just the look and, I'm really disappointed in you or something like that. That's all he needed to say. He didn't need to raise his fist or do anything, yell or anything else. He was a calm, quiet man and a man of faith, a man of God. He lived his life, lived it that way his whole life. And yeah, I just couldn't have a better father than my dad.
Let me just say, Dave's dad was the best. You hate to say, when they brought me in, when I was on Down and Out, they treated me like I was one of their own. They didn't know me. They didn't know who I was. They knew I was Dave's friend and we hung out. But they treated me like I was one of theirs. And from then on, they always did. When I'd go back to visit, they always treat so. And your dad, they don't make him like they do. If you could take a class of parenting, we say it's generational. But even his style was way ahead of its time. And he was. Anyway, sorry, Dave. I'm going to get emotional.
No, me too.
That man, he's the kind of guy that you wish you had as a dad. Just throw that out there. So,
well, I try to emulate. I try to do things he's done. So hopefully I've been able to impart. If I can be just half as good as he was, then I'll be great.
Yeah.
Anyway, from there, my last song then was a song by George Strait called "The Greatest Day," and so I wanted to talk about that beforehand because there were so many times where I probably had 100 great days or 1,000 great days. I don't know. I probably lost count of them. But if I think about this song where he talks about when he's 7 years old, going out fishing with his dad, and his son says, this could be the greatest day, of my life. And been looking forward to this. And then later on, 15 years old, he buys him a classic, Corvette to fix up and works with him on it. And even though me and my dad, we didn't do the car thing, we did the sports thing, but, and then later when he gets married, his dad is there. I could take that from that point, just continuing, there's probably so many opportunities where I just remember, whether it was Christmases or whether it was birthdays, whether it was sports activities, he took me to the Spurs games that first year. So I'm a lifelong Spurs fan. In 1973, when they came to town, I probably went to maybe 8 or 9 games that year because he wanted me to enjoy that. And at the time, there's only 2,500, 3,000 people going to those games. And so anyway, I just remember doing that with my dad. And this song always reminds me of that when I hear it. Is that, yeah, this could be the best day of my life. And I've had lots of those.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. I did get to meet him once. I think just one time we made actually a playlist, I believe, over at your place. I don't remember much else about it, but he seemed like a great guy. I wish I could have had a chance to meet him more, but that's great, Dave. When I listen to the song, I'm thinking about my son and I, and and I'll say a little bit more about this about my dad later. But when you got the teenage years and that distance, well, it's a natural distance that happens. It's different. It's different extremes for other people, but it's like you're growing up and you're becoming independent, and that's what you want in a child. You're not raising them to always be like your lackey, and but bef- even after, but particularly younger years when he's first in little league and stuff, and we'd be driving to games. I He and I get a lot of time to talk in the car, and for me, I'm hoping for him. I mean, he would say stuff, sure, but for me, those were some of the best days. Having those chances. Before we were on the video, I was talking about the song "Me and Julio" down by the schoolyard, and James and I has nothing to do with baseball, but James, my son, and I would go. I'd be driving him to back in even little league, driving to different. To a game or whatever that he was going to play, and they for some reason this song had just kind of clicked with us, and so it kind of became our pre-game one of the things when we listened on the car radio. And those moments were great, and we still have that song. I looked the other day, I noticed he has created his own playlist, I think on Spotify. No, it's Apple Music. And Me and Julio down by the schoolyard and Old Man and some other songs. He's like picking up some of that off me. So anyway, yeah, it's when it's good, it's really good with twin fathers and sons.
I agree. And that's the way I took this song on. Dave knows this. I was going to pick this song, and he picked it. It was on my list. It's good. I also agree. I looked at it as spending time with my son and all the fun that we have, all the ball games we go to, all the concerts we go to. I mean, all the things that we do together are so much fun, and obviously I'm not with him now, but when we go inside, that's why I love those times together. And that's how I look. And it is the best day. That day is the best day because, you're spending time with them, you're enjoying it, which you should be doing. And that's how I saw it. So, yeah, and I thought that was just a fantastic song. And so from there, I went with kind of in a similar vein, more country for us, Conway Twitty. Who would have thought Waylon Jennings and Conway Twitty on the same playlist? Out there, huh? Who had that on their parlay? That's my.
We'll say it's not just Conway Twitty. It's the fact that Jose put on Conway Twitty.
I think this is the most country I've listened to in the last 5 years, combined of my 55 other years. I guess you get a little soft spot at some point where you're like, okay, there must be good music out there. So yeah, I agree. Conway Twitty. And but I like the song because I like the sentiment because that's how I view it. That you know, we have work. There's work, and we do a work, and we do a job. But that's not my job. My job is to do everything I can to provide for my son, and so that's how I look at it. What I do, everything that revolves around me revolves around how it affects my son, what I'm gonna do for him, how to make his life better. So yeah, I thought it was a great little song, and like I said, you find these little country gems out of nowhere. I'm not ready to don the cowboy hat and cowboy boots and head on over to the blue bonnet, but uh, I thought it was a great song.
With before George Strait, there was Conway Twitty. I mean, he was that big back in
Right.
the day, before that. And so, yeah, he's classic country all the way through. And I wasn't familiar with the song, but it's a great song. I like how his son talks about like, well, what if I get out there and I don't have any money and I can't get back, And he's like, don't worry, man, that's my job. I'll bring you back, And it's almost like a little bit of the prodigal son kind of yeah, woven in there, right? I'm going to go out and I'm going to try to I'm going to try to do my thing, give me my inheritance, whatever. But what happens if I don't make it? What if I fail? And his father said, hey, that's my job. Don't worry. I always have a place here. So yeah, great song. Kind of surprised me that you put it on, but it was good.
Yeah, there's I'm surprised too. I would never. I'm sure if you named some of them, I would go, oh yeah, I know that song. But Conway Twitty has not really been, like Willie Nelson, and I just never sought out his music. But yes, I know his name was all over the place. And this song, it kind of harkens back to a couple on the list. Here for you for sure. If that's my job, I'm gonna, thick or thin, if it comes down to it, you hit bottom, I'm here for you. And then also kind of the arc and which one? Oh, where is it? James Blunt song. Because at the end his father dies, and he's saying in here it's like, how do I write a song about my dad? It's like that's my job. So, when his dad had died. But I was pleasantly surprised. I like this song. It's a good song. It's very, it got me. Um, and just, I'm going to double dip a little bit about my dad because I think I didn't cover, and I'm not going to spend much time on this, but before it was dad and son kind of doing this, me and my dad, man, I idolized that guy. He ran Casa Bonita in Tulsa. If you've seen South Park, anybody who's watching, look up Casa Bonita. There's one in the Denver area, or in Denver. But anyway, there was one in Tulsa, and he ran that for years and years. And for that, after that, he ran one in Little Rock. And so we would go up there, and the guy worked his rear end off his whole life. They basically had to make him eventually retire from one of his jobs because that's what he did. And so I always saw him that way. And I was like, I said this at his memorial service, that he was like king of that place to me. It's like, because he knew everything going on, and he was on it, and he was making it run right, and it was a good place. But it was, yeah, I really looked up to him, and my brother too, and those days especially. Plus the bonus, Casa Bonita, it's like a theme restaurant. It's supposed to be like a village, a very Anglo-centric view of what a Mexican village might look like. But before it was open, we go up there sometimes with them, and my brother and I would, as long as we stayed out of the way of the crew setting up, we had the run of the place. There's a cave and a waterfall, and so we had all kinds of fun. That doesn't really have anything to do with that, but yeah, I just want to add that. So
Did you ever try the cliff diving while you were there?
they didn't, they didn't have, okay, that only the Denver one had that.
Oh, okay.
Denver was like, it wasn't the first, but it was basically the flagship store because they threw in everything there. And when I was a kid, my dad brought home, they had like this, the guy who owned all of them, he'd have these conventions or whatever, get-togethers with everybody, and they'd come, whatever. And one year they put together this real slick thing about that restaurant, and I saw the cliff divers. There was like a wishing well that it would talk to you. There'd be a face in there. I always wanted to go. And then not until years later, when I was in Colorado, before we started this, when went to hiking in Rocky Mountain National Park, um, we went by there and it was a bitter disappointment. The food was lousy, it was shoddy. The South Park guys had bought it, or at least part of the investors, and they've changed the menu up. They also, well, I guess anyway, they changed the menu up and stuff, but apparently they fixed it up. So I'll have to give it another look.
They said they regret doing that. They said from a financial standpoint and everything else, if they had to go back and do it over again, they probably wouldn't have done it. They're not going to recoup their money for probably ever. You know, they put through so much money into it, lost so much money into it, but they did it kind of out of a, you know, make because it was an iconic place or whatever. But I heard an interview where they're like, nah, we wouldn't do that again.
Well, it's the only one left. They used to have one in Oklahoma City, Little Rock. I think there was one in Fort Worth, Tulsa, and yeah. But I wonder if it's holding its own, if it's not going to be a success. I'm kind of curious. I know they changed the menu dramatically, from what I've heard. But anyway, this is way off topic. Started talking about my dad. Here we are, Cartman and Casa Bonita. So I thought I'd end on an up note with My Father's Eyes by Eric Clapton. It is a sad song. It's he speaking of
No, it's a sad song.
what now?
You said, let's get in on an up note. This is a sad song.
Oh no, I know that was sarcasm. Yeah, no, it was, and honestly, actually, this relates to my dad too because my stepmother bought him Clapton Unplugged, which has a kind of sister song to this from a little earlier time, Tears in Heaven. Um, it completely, and then part of this are about the death of Clapton's son Connor, who didn't live past his toddler years. I can't imagine there's anybody that doesn't know what happened, but it was just horrific. Poor, it's got to change a person. I mean, I don't know. Anyway, the song he's talking about, he never got his dad before got died before he got to know him, and so he wished he could look into his father's eyes. Similar sentiment with his son dying, and then at the end, I think if I understand, it sounds to me like he's looking into his eyes and seeing both of them there. But I, Tears in Heaven, how can you say anything bad about that song? I think maybe it's just I've heard it so much, but it's just so hard to listen to. This one, I don't know, it came along later and I didn't initially know the story behind it, but I always thought it was just kind of had a nice hook and a good sound. They're both great songs, but I thought this one I was going to put it on here somewhere and it just happened to, that's the spot I had left.
No, I consider it the sister song about song. In fact, I always get those two confused. Like, oh yeah, that's Tears in Heaven, My Father's Eyes. Oh, it's one and the same to me. Not that that's a bad thing. Not that they sound the same. Not any of that. I'm not begrudging. And of course, like Mike said, I don't know how you even write a song about that and make it into something. But I guess that's how people work through their grief sometimes is writing songs, musicians writing these songs and conveying this message because it's heart-wrenching to even think about it. But yeah, and Eric Clapton, like I said, that thing really took off. It's unfortunate under those circumstances, but interesting way to kind of end the thing. But I think on a thing, I think the sentiments there of at one point he hopes to see both of them. He doesn't say in heaven, but that's what's implied. Like one day we'll all be together. So yeah.
Yeah, it's a great song. It was a big hit for him. I had it on my short list of songs, and a good way to end the playlist as well. I was looking for an opportunity to put that on somewhere. Um, so as the playlist rolls on, you go, oh no, I'm not going to be able to get that one on. Nope, not going to be able to get that one on. Um, but there's so many other great songs. So it was a good way to end the playlist. There were songs that were obviously left off. We talked about a couple of them, but with George Strait, even I just wanted to say he had a song called "Forever and Ever, Amen," where it talks about his son, and I was torn between that or the Best Day. And then there's a Randy Travis song called He Walked on Water," but it's actually more about his grandfather than anything. And I thought, well, maybe could have done that too, because we're not just paying tribute to fathers, but grandfathers and great grandfathers as well, and their role that they play in families' lives. And so there were a couple that missed. And then also, I think we didn't put any female singers on here, and there was one that by the Judds called "Daddy's Hands," which I was going to try to get on and ended up not getting them on. But were there any that you guys had that you kind of omitted or felt like you missed getting it on?
I had The Living Years, like Mike and the Mechanics, but that's kind of your
I did
Genesis.
too. I did have that one too.
Junior's Eyes, Black Sabbath, but it just didn't fit in with all the country. I think it's a great song. And then The Walk by Sawyer Brown, that probably could have made it in there. It's one of those different kind of songs that would have made it in. Mike?
Well, this one, strangely enough, we covered most of the songs I had. I did have a Neil Young song called "Daddy Went Walking," and it was off of, was it Silver and Gold? I think it was the album either preceding the one Prairie of Wind or after. It was just like right around the same. Also, that concert I saw, he also played songs off this, and but your song is a much better choice. It's just more, there's more depth to it and more, you know, heartfelt stuff. It's clear singing about his dad, but it's not a bad. I like this song. And then also a similar song, "Walking Man" by James Taylor, which he doesn't ever mention his dad, but it's about his dad who kind of was a no-show father. He left a lot. He wasn't there, and maybe like father, like son. James Taylor had his struggles with, being there, and a lot of that was in music life. But those two, I had My Father's House by Springsteen, but I didn't really know it that well. That's off of Nebraska, I think.
I had that when I listened to it, and I thought, nah, it was too dark. It was too.
Yeah.
You put the Independence Day one on because I had it on the list. I was like, maybe I'll put that on, but it was like it talked about he drives by his old house and went up to the door and was trying to that it was kind of weird. He tried to just drive by his old house and remember his dad, but it's kind of a creepy old cricket song.
Yeah, it was too dark. I thought the same thing, even though it was on this list. And also a Steve Goodman song, "My Old Man," and it was also kind of dark. And I'm like, this just isn't where I want to go with this. I mean, it's sweet and sad, but yeah. So I'm happy with what we did, and I would have been fine if you did put on "Father and Son," or what was the other one? You mentioned another one there.
Dan Fogelberg, leader of the band.
Oh yeah, yeah. And there's others. There's some that don't have mentioned father, or like it just mentions a father in passing, like what's going on. But it does. It is about that generational thing, and so it just wasn't enough specifically about dads for me to put on.
Well, great. Like I said, we've got coming up here pretty soon. By the time we get the playlist out, it'll probably be pretty close to Father's Day. So give it a listen. Hope you enjoy the songs. As always, more than just listening to us talk about them, we really want you to go and listen to the playlist. That's where the really special moments come. And so we'd encourage you to listen to the playlist. Any second thoughts?
Yeah. Happy Father's Day. I mean, like I said, it's one of those things that we all are proud to be fathers. So, you know, Happy Father's Day to all of them. And like I said, grandfathers, oh no, grandfathers aren't around for us as much anymore. So
I can't add much to that. It's such a great thing that I've had a chance to be a father. It just I can't if you haven't had that experience, you can't really explain it to somebody. I remember when my son was born, actually was able to be in the room that time, and my daughter was kind of an emergency situation. But it was that whole thing. I held him shortly after, and I was like, I just came out. I was like, "Hey, buddy." And so, in the years since, even as he's been playing baseball, his senior year, he's buddy. He's other things too. I won't discuss the ones when I'm not happy with him, but he's. I'm kidding. But yeah, he's still buddy. And he'll always be my little buddy. So glad we did this playlist.
Well, good. Well, that's a wrap. Again, happy Father's Day and happy listening.